me, when is... Hello. We got this? There we go. All right. Tell me, when is the last time that you remember a cold, hard winter like we just had? It was my childhood back in the 80s is the last time I remember a winter like this, where this year, if you stood on my street, you could only see the rooftops of the houses because the snowbank was obscuring everything else. Cars would park on the side of the road and you wouldn't even know they were there. There was a carpenter van parked on the side of the road, and the snowbank was so high, I had no idea it was out front. It was such a cold, hard winter. And then, of course, the cherry on this Sunday was a devastating ice storm that saw some communities without power for over a week. And I witnessed firsthand the devastation as I drove from Victoria Harbor, where I live, into Collingwood during the aftermath. I saw trees split and splintered. I saw barns sagging towards the earth. I saw, and there still is, areas where there's caution tape strewn around, marking off unsafe areas. But if there is one inalienable Canadian hope, it is not just for the Maple Leafs to win the Stanley Cup. It's that winter cannot and will not last forever. That if we hold on long enough, spring will come. Well, this week, as I made my usual hour-long journey through the countryside, passing through Vasey, bypassing Elmvale in favor of Floss Road 10, and working my way slowly through the heavily patrolled streets of Wasaga Beach on my way to Collingwood, I was treated to the budding evidence of spring. I saw townhouses whose front lawns were covered in dandelions. I saw green buds and yellow leaves forming on the trees. I saw pink cherry blossoms sitting beside old farmhouses. And even the wonderful, beautiful smell of cow manure, which signals that the ground has thawed and the livestock have finally moved outside. Everywhere I looked, I saw signs of growth, signs of new life. In the book of Galatians, the Apostle Paul, he speaks about our lives in much the same way. He says that when we invite the Holy Spirit of God into our lives, and when we begin to follow his leading and lean on him for wisdom and understanding, there will be evidence of internal growth. There will even be outward signs of new life. And he calls these signs the fruit of the Spirit. He says, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. And I think the analogy is a really clever one. When I was in grade 3, my parents moved out of their tiny little starter home in Stouffville, Ontario, and they moved into the house that would become our family home. All but a few of my formative childhood memories take place in this home on Montreal Street in Stouffville, not far from the sales barn, if you know the area. When they moved in, they not only inherited a beautiful circle driveway and a beautiful side yard, and my dad's favorite, a 2-car garage that was insulated, they also inherited a number of trees. Of particular note, there were 2 peach trees and an apple tree in our side yard. The peach trees, I don't know if you know a whole lot about them, but they are not well suited to the cold climate in Stouffville, Ontario. And that geographical reality, paired with our complete lack of cultivation skills, meant that those two peach trees, year after year, produced zero fruit. Eventually, I don't know if they both died or my parents had just had enough of looking at them and took them down, but they were removed. The only thing that remained out of the three trees was the grizzled old crab apple tree in the corner. And this was distressing to me in particular because every year my brother and I were tasked with picking up all the rotten apples off the ground and disposing of them, which was not only monotonous, but also, you may know, dangerous, because what do bees and wasps love more than old, rotten crab apples? The moral of this story is that barren trees and rotten fruit are easy to come by. Barren trees and rotten fruit are easy to come by, but real, bountiful fruit requires just the right climate and a careful gardener. You see, there's times in our lives when we can feel disconnected from God. Or maybe we just go through a period where we always just seem to be angry or frustrated or discouraged. Sometimes we have periods where nothing good seems to be sprouting in our lives. And it sort of feels like we're in this dark winter of the soul, which will never end. And I think what Paul wants to emphasize is that when the Spirit of God, the gardener, if you will, is active in our lives, and he's pruning, and he's tending and cultivating, and if we provide just the right climate, which is an open heart to the Spirit's work, there will be evidence. We should produce fresh fruit. And he lists those fruit. There's 9 of them, in fact, and some of them just might be surprising to you, but I bet the one that surprises you the least is number 1. Love. And I'm sure that this is absolutely 100% intentional, that Paul is beginning with love. After all, we know that God is love, and that means that the Holy Spirit is love. And having God, and thus the Holy Spirit, in your life is going to bear the fruit of love. In fact, we know how much Paul valued the attribute of love because he often wrote about it. He wrote about it all the time. In 1 Corinthians 13, that famous passage that was so well read and is read at just about every wedding that you've ever attended, Paul says that love is one of the highest attributes that you can possess. In fact, he says it's the highest. He says out of the top 3, faith, hope, and love, the greatest of these isn't hope, isn't even faith. It is love. And just before that, Paul, who loved his list, by the way, he was always listing things, he describes what love truly looks like. That love is patient and kind. It doesn't envy, it doesn't boast, it's not proud. It never dishonors other people. It doesn't seek its own good. It's not angry. And when it's wronged, it doesn't write it down in any notebook. But here's the problem with love. We talk about love so much that it sort of loses its meaning over time. Love can sometimes be so idealized that it becomes more of an abstract concept than anything else. more than something you can see or taste or touch or see. Or worse, it becomes a teenage pop song throbbing with hormones. In 1960, C.S. Lewis wrote a book called The Four Loves. And in this book, he noticed that in Greek, there are 4 words for love. Now, we just have the one. Greek, the language of the New Testament, it's a very precise language. Trust me, my Greek professors reminded me of that over and over again in seminary. I didn't do very well the first time round. Had to repeat it twice. But the nice thing about Greek is that it has less ambiguity than English, which means you can get a little more specific than we can get. And so it has 4 words for love depending upon the type of love that the author is speaking about. So to take a 24-minute speech that I heard from C.S. Lewis, condense it down into 30 seconds, the first love is storge. Storge is familial love. It's the love that's formed, a deep bond that is formed between a parent and a child or siblings. The next is philia. Philia is a friendship bond. It's a bond that forms, it's a love that forms between people who share common values and interests and activities. And then the third one is eros. This is a romantic love. It's the one that most pop songs will sing about. But of course, Lewis was happy to note that it's more than just lust. It's so much more than that. It is when you have a commitment in a romantic way to somebody else. And then there is the fourth one. The fourth one is agape love. Agape love is a love that exists regardless of changing circumstances. It is a love that exists no matter what happens. And Lewis recognizes this selfless love as the greatest of the 4 loves, and he sees it as an ideal Christian value. You see, the thing about agape love is that it is unending, sacrificial, and it is actualized. By that, I mean that it is a love that never quits, it costs you something, and it is always put into action. In John's Gospel, Jesus says this, "My command is this, love each other as I have loved you." Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. Now, obviously, Jesus is foreshadowing. He's preparing them for what he is about to do, because he is about to willingly sacrifice his life for theirs and for the whole world. And he wants them to know that when they look back on this, that his death is not a victory for the bad guys. No, this is God's victory. Because love, agape love, that comes from the Spirit of God is unending, sacrificial, and actualized. It's a love that never quits, it costs you something, and it is put into action. And quite frankly, we see no better example of this than on the cross. As Romans tells us, God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. And Jesus would tell his followers, whoever wants to be my disciple, whoever wants to follow me, needs to follow in my footsteps. They must deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. This agape love is the kind of love that hits up 6 different grocery stores, shopping the sales to buy food to deliver to people in need. That's agape love. It's the kind of love that travels 6 hours for a funeral to support a friend in their time of grief. It's the kind of love that gives away your last $20 to the person at the intersection holding a cardboard sign. And today of all days, I think we should recognize that it is the same love that the moms gathered in this room or watching at home have for their children. Every mom here would literally die for their kids. A mother's love never quits. It costs you almost everything, including your sanity. And it is demonstrated tangibly every single day. And you know, even when our kids are grown and we have kids and they have kids of their own, our moms never stop loving, never stop worrying, never cease praying for their children. This is the kind of fruit that the Spirit of God desires to cultivate within our lives if we just open our hearts and allow Him to do so. And not just for our own kids, which is kind of easy to do, but for the outcast, for the refugee, for the brokenhearted, for those who need it most. You see, barren trees and rotten fruit, those are easy to come by in this world. And they will leave you empty, and you may even get stung. But God desires more for you than that. So if you have felt disconnected from God lately, or feel angry or frustrated or discouraged, if it feels like the winter of your soul will never end, then I want you to consider a very simple prayer this week. I want you to just simply pray, God, make my life fertile soil for the fruit of your Spirit. And show me signs of growth. That's it. Because I can tell you, as I drove here this morning, those small little signs of growth were so encouraging to my soul, because I knew that they were just signs of greater things to come. After all, we Canadians know that winter cannot last forever. If we hold on long enough, spring will come, and with it, signs of new life. Let us now gather together in song. Let us sing about